I'm a little assistant coach, Coach's Corner, sponsored by Coca's Pizza. Thanks, Steve Coca, for all you do for Boardman Spartan Athletics. He's a sponsor of Boardman football, and we're out here on the patio on a Monday night, a great night, joined by assistant coach Andre Elliott. First of all, Coach, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
All right, let's jump into Coach Elliott. First year at Boardman.
Yes, sir.
Talk about yourself a little bit for Spartan fans, a little bit about Coach Elliott.
So I grew up in Cleveland, moved here to Youngstown in 2007 when I transferred into YSU to join the football team. So I played there from 2007 to 2008 and met my wife here. She was a local girl, and she didn't want to go to Cleveland to the big city. And I thought the cost of living here was a whole lot better anyway. So I made this my new home. Bought a house in Boardman. Kids are growing up here in Boardman, and so I wanted to invest in the community as much as possible. So I got into coaching Little Spartans. I stepped away from coaching high school ball a few years prior to at a few different schools, and said I'll just focus on Little Spartans. Then last year, Fitz called me up and said, "Hey, we need a guy to coach the running backs. We heard good things about you. Would you be interested in coming over?" And so I did that. I was like, you know what? It would be nice to get a year under my belt. Maybe I can move over to Boardman at some point. Okay. And then, as fate would have it, Seth got the job in January. I got a phone call, and he's like, "Oh, man, I'm sorry, man. I didn't know you were over at Fitz." I was like, "No, listen, it's a good situation to be in. My son's about to be a sophomore. All of my kids are in Boardman schools." I said, "Let me go talk to my wife about it and see what happens." And my wife was thrilled with the idea of me joining the Spartans.
Well, that's fantastic. Coach Andre Elliott, Coach's Corner, sponsored by Coca's Pizza. Thanks, Steve, for all you do in Spartan football. Let's talk about your kids a little bit. Talk about your kids and your family and their ages and where they're at right now.
So I've got 4 little ones of my own. My oldest daughter, Dreana, is 17. She'll be a senior this year. She's going to school at MCCTC, but still a Spartan. My 14-year-old son, Philip, he's a sophomore, plays wide out and safety, a little corner on the varsity squad there. And then my youngest son, Andre Jr., he is 11 years old, 6th grader over at center. He plays for the Little Spartans. He broke his tibia and his fibula yesterday in the season opener. So that was a little tough, but he's looking forward to coaching on the sidelines already. And then Amaya is 6 years old. She just started soccer. So Amaya is my little princess. She doesn't really want to play too many sports, but she wanted to play soccer, and she had her first game this week, and it was amazing.
And there you have it, Spartan fans. Coach is inbred in Boardman schools, which we're happy of. I'm going to say this, a lot of athletic genes from the Elliott family. I remember watching you play at YSU. Talk about a little bit of your time at YSU and how that's helped you develop from a coaching standpoint.
So for me, like I said, I transferred in my freshman year. I played ball at Gardner-Webb University.
Okay.
And I had my daughter at 16. So she was hundreds of miles away from me, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So I called up Coach Haycock and said, "Hey, I made a terrible decision. I want to come back." And he opened the door and said, "Hey, you're going to have to earn it." And I said, "All right, no problem. I did you wrong. I understand." And so I transferred in. I earned myself a scholarship. But that first year was the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me. I had this redshirt that year. Sure. And so I had to study. I sat with the coaches, watched film as much as possible, and that helped me understand the game from a different lens. And so when I stepped in my sophomore year to actually play in 2008, the game slowed down a lot for me. And so I had a ton of success there. And then my senior year, I herniated a disc in my neck. And so I had an opportunity to go on to play ball at the next level, but I already had 3 kids and they were getting into sports. And I was like, you know what? I think it's better if I just step back and maybe I'll cheer my kids on the sideline and potentially become a coach. And so I joined the coaching staff at Youngstown Christian shortly after that, and stayed connected with YSU, just studying the game, learning as much as I could because I thought I wanted to coach at the college level. But with the time commitment that it requires and me already having little ones, I was like, man, that's a little tough. So,
well, you had a great career at Youngstown State. I'm fortunate enough to do the games on the radio with Boardman, and now I remember being there watching you play. I guess my next question for the Spartan fans: how is it with the son on the field now? You're coaching the varsity football team at Boardman. Is there that dad-son relationship, or talk about that relationship, how it is on a football field?
So it's interesting. Like I coached Phil when he was playing flag football when he was younger, and I was always like worried about how the relationship would be impacted. And so I kind of played this game where it was like, all right, I'm going to be an assistant coach so I don't have to deal with them so much, and then I'll back off and let someone else coach them. And then I'll jump back in and we'll see how it works. But this year, to be honest with you, he's so coachable now that it actually works out well. we don't have too many issues, too many conflicts. He actually comes and he asks questions about different things. And on the bright side, too, I've got Coach Popio over there with me. So if there's something that I want to say and I'm like, I don't know about that, I can always throw it on Pope.
Let's go to Coach Popio a second. There's a name that's infamous at Boardman. He's doing the defense now. Talk about that relationship with Coach Popio. We'll get into the Cardinal Mooney game. Defensively, I thought you played very well. Talk about Coach Pope and what he's doing with that defense.
Listen, man, he's fired up. I tell you what, when we first sat down at the beginning, when we were putting all this together, he's like, hey, whatever it takes, we're going to get it done. And so we were all on the same page, drawing up what we thought worked best for our kids, trying to make sure that we could put them in the best possible situation to be successful. And I think he's done a great job of really teaching. He has a teaching background, obviously, and so he can break it down to students so that our players really understand what the big picture is. And then he's able to adjust. He takes what we have already in place, and then he tailors it to fit the needs of our kids. And I tell you what, man, they buy into it. They listen to him. He's fired up today out there in practice. We had a guy missing on the field, and so he steps in. He's running around with the kids. Oh, it's a great time.
Well, that's good to hear, Coach Popio. Coach has developed a great staff. I guess before we get into that Cardinal Mooney game, let's talk a bit about Coach Antrim. I've known Seth from YSU, obviously, and have had the opportunity to talk to him at Cheney with Coach Emile, and now he's the head coach at the Boardman Spartans. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of the first things I asked him last week is, what does it mean to be the head coach of the Boardman Spartans? And I thought his answer was fantastic. I really did. Football is important in Boardman. There's no question about that. He understands all the great players that have come through here. He owns what he's doing. And what I was most impressed with from a social media standpoint, I followed you guys throughout the summer and saw all those different things that you guys were doing with kids today that, let's be honest, need those role models. Absolutely. They do. They need models as coaches. They need models as friends on a field. It's a different world than we all lived in, no question. So talk about Coach Antrim a little bit and how that relationship is and your thoughts on how this is going.
Family. Seth is like a big brother to me, man. I tell you what, one of the things that he talked about was we got to love on these kids. I mean, he can't say it enough. It's all day, every day that's what it's about. And in everything that we do, we're trying to find a way to draw each other closer to one another. And I think that's great for our team, for our staff, for this community. The more that people see us together, the more it brings everybody together. And especially in this day and age, man, there's just so much going on around us that we need each other now more than ever. So that's kind of been the message that he's always preaching. And it's not just always about football. I mean, we're doing things with these kids outside of football. We're making sure that they got everything that they need on and off the field. And so that's just been his mentality from top to bottom. And he has that same expectation of himself as well as with all of our players and coaches.
Well, it's a great start for all you guys for sure. With Andre Elliott, Coach's Corner, sponsored by Coca's Pizza, the home sponsor of the Boardman Spartans football season. All season long, they will play the Cheney Cowboys at Spartan Stadium on Friday night. We'll have it for you on ysnlive.com. We're awful proud to be the home of Spartan football. Let's jump in. Cardinal Mooney comes to town. A pretty good opponent in game one. That's a big-time rivalry.
Absolutely.
I was able to watch that game from the studio. I love Mooney Boardman and the crowds and the student body and that atmosphere. And it was great to see that back after last year with the COVID and the limited attendance. I guess before we get into the game, how great was that atmosphere?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, to see a crowd full of people, it's been a long time since we've seen anything like it. And so to hear the band going, got the fans going crazy. The student section was wild, and then the kids were fired up. It was a really, really great environment. And, you know, Cardinal Mooney and Boardman, there's some history there.
Oh, absolutely.
There's some history there. I got one of my coaches was the defensive coordinator over there.
Okay, who's that?
Coach Ronnie Stoops.
Okay, yes,
so
absolutely.
being able to coach against my college coach was pretty cool. To beat him was even a little bit better.
Okay, so I'm a Mooney graduate, and here I am with the Spartan shirt on. But we support Spartan football, so Coach gave it to me. I'm glad to wear it. I watched the game, and I see a team that pretty fast, pretty athletic, and pretty physical. Talk about the first half. I think the first couple drives, you moved the ball quite well, got it down in there, weren't able to do it. But I was impressed with the team speed. I thought and the thing I wanted to ask you about that game, I was impressed with Boardman's tackling throughout the whole game. How, from a coach's standpoint, after you were able to watch that film and see some players, the athleticism's off the charts, no question. But I remember talking with Coach love on the line of scrimmage, and some of those younger guys. I thought offensive line and defensive line kind of took control of that game like midway through the first quarter. Your thoughts?
Right. Yeah, we took care of business up front, and our guys worked hard to get to this point. And the one thing that I try to emphasize to all of our guys is play fast and play physical. If you can play fast and play physical and you're confident in your abilities and understanding the game plan, you can really dominate. And so that's our point of emphasis almost every single day. And if we come out there and show it, obviously the fans see it and we can continue to improve. Because the one thing that you said, what do you think about it? You thought we tackled well. I went back and looked at the film and I saw some things where we can get better. I saw some areas where we can definitely improve. I'm proud of what we've done up to this point, but we've got a long season ahead of us. And so if we can get 1% better, that's something that I always live by. If we can get 1% better every single day, that takes us a long way throughout the season, that improvement.
Well, I'm going to say this, you get 1% better this week, it's going to be hard to beat a pretty good Spartan football team with the athleticism. We're going to have Sean O'Hara on in the player profile. I've known the family. I've watched his brother play here. They know how to represent Boardman High School and Boardman football. Absolutely. I think that's one of the keys, and I'm so impressed that coaches like you and Seth have come in and put that Boardman mentality back on the map. The world's a better place when Spartan football is getting after it and getting some W's, and the people in Boardman are going to be awful proud of this football team, no question.
Oh, most definitely.
All right, let's get into Andre Elliott. Let's go. We're going to get him out of here because we have a house to go show.
Yes.
We talked off air about that. This is pretty interesting to me. Football coaches are usually coaches. I love this from a time standpoint. Coach Elliott gets to set up things when he likes to do. If you're looking for a house, here's the guy to come to, Andre Elliott. If you're looking for Boardman, here he is. If we can be a sponsor, if you want to be a sponsor where you're at, we'd love to talk to you. Get a hold of DJ. Talk about that process. You said you changed careers. That's mighty impressive with a big family.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd always been trying to find ways to create more time so that I could get into coaching at a full-time level. And so I was working down at the juvenile court. I started a landscaping company about 3 years ago. And so I had the understanding of what it took to put in that work and to be able to create the flexibility that I wanted. But I know that cutting grass only lasts for so long. Then the snow comes and we've got to take care of that. And so I needed to find another avenue. And many times I've had people say that, hey, I think you do really well in the real estate game. And I was like, all right, I'll take a stab at it at some point. I like watching HGTV anyway, so this might work out for me. So I studied. I asked my mentor, I said, hey, how soon can I pass the classes and get my license? He's like, well, the classes are about 3 weeks. And so being a competitor, I said, I'm going to finish in 3 weeks. It took me 3 weeks and 6 days to finish the classes. I passed and went on and took my exam. Passed it on the first time. Didn't think I was going to pass, but I put the work in, and here I am. So I've been licensed now for about 5 months. And it's been a joy.
I could tell just with the smile on your face. I could tell you like what you're doing. So a little plug for Coach Elliott. If you're looking for a house, here's the guy to come to. Obviously, proud of that. Proud to be a part of this, and awful glad you joined us. I like to end things. We're with Coach Elliott, Coach's Corner, sponsored by Coca's Pizza. Again, we can't thank Steve enough for all he does with appetizers and supporting Boardman athletics and Spartan football. Spartan fans, if you can't get to the game at home against Cheney on Friday night, come on over here. It's a great environment to watch high school sports. He's a big supporter of YSN, and we appreciate that. But last question, your biggest role model. Who was your role? Is there someone you looked up to or somebody you leaned on growing up with? Just like we talk about kids today, all those tough decisions early in high school, transfer, pro ball, and injury. Who was that guy for you?
The biggest role model. I think my biggest role model was my high school coach, Jeff Roski.
Okay. So shout out to Coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Go VASJ.
VASJ, Villa Angela St. Joe's.
Yep.
That's a common name in this area. I remember the days. I think Boardman High School beat Elvis Gerback and Desmond Howard, if I remember. So Boardman got one up on VASJ.
Yep.
That's awesome. Talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, so I met Coach my junior year. I transferred in. Like I said, I had a daughter in high school. So my daughter was born going into my junior year that summer. And I told my mom I wanted to transfer schools. I was in a tough spot going into Cleveland inner city schools, and things just weren't going well. And so Coach welcomed me in. I moved out there with my dad. And when I moved in, I had a tough time because we had a lot of seniors that were playing ahead of me. We had just started training camp, and so I was kind of on the back end of things and didn't play much my junior year. But Coach stayed on me and said, hey, if you really want to be a part of this, you're going to have to make some changes in life. You're going to have to commit to the things that you say you're going to commit to, and there's no backing away. And so if you want to be a part of this family, it's going to take a lot of work. And I learned the hard way. It was tough sometimes traveling from my mom's house to make it to school, which was sometimes on a bus ride, an hour ride. But at the end of the day, when I got into my senior year, after not playing for my entire junior year, I worked my way up to a senior captain. I was a starter. And then week one, I broke my wrist, 5th play of the game. And coach comes over and he says some words to me that I won't share on air.
Tape it up and get back in there.
And I taped it up, went back in there, and then he loved on me and became like a father figure to me. And, he reaches out constantly. We're still a family, GF. I just had a good friend of mine call me today and said, hey, I just heard GF. What does that stand for? God Family Grace Football. We live that as a family over there at Maple Heights, and now it all travels together. Wherever he goes, we follow.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Spartan fans, you have yourself a good one, and assistant coach Andre Elliott. Coach, thanks for joining us. Look forward to many more talks. We'll let you get out of here and hopefully get that house sold. But best of all, go beat Cheney on Friday night and get that victory number 2.
You got it. Appreciate you.